Hi there, I'm Deanna Southerling. I am the marketing coordinator in the JCPS Communications and Community Relations Department. I work in the communications department, so a lot of times I'm talking to external audiences, some of which have a relationship with JCPS. They might have a student in JCPS, they might be a graduate, and then some who don't have a relationship with JCPS and really only know us from what they see on TV. And a lot of times that can come with some different sorts of expectations or understandings about who we are. So one part of my role is communicating so that people will understand the messages that we are sending, so that people will have a better sense of who we are as a district. So as you know, we all come with different biases whenever we're approaching a conversation or a meeting or a topic. And in my role as an external communicator, it's important that I anticipate what some of those biases and responses are going to be to some of the messages that I'm communicating. So I've got to communicate in a way that folks will understand. So one recent example where this came up is as we are talking about our JCPS investment plan, and some of the funds that are used will be for investing in new school buildings, which on the surface for some people doesn't seem like it's a racial equity issue. So I was recently in a communication with some stakeholders where I had to unpack that for them, to share that really building new schools is a racial equity issue, not just because some of the schools in the neighborhoods that we build them in might be predominantly Black or other people of color, but also because building new schools isn't just about having a pretty building. There are real implications for students who are learning in those spaces. So we know that some of our school buildings that are in most need are in some of our parts of the community where there are the least resources. So it's a lot harder to understand in class if you're too cold or you're too hot. And that's something that we're dealing with when we say that some 32 of our buildings are at end of life. They have HVAC systems that are at risk of going down. And when you're a student trying to learn in that kind of environment, it can be very distracting. There's also implications for when classes are overcrowded. It's harder to get one-on-one attention from a teacher. It's harder to stay focused when there are more students around you who are in need or who might just be communicating with each other. So these are all topics that really play into racial equity that some folks I know in that conversation had not thought of before. So that can be one of the challenges, is just communicating in a way that the intended audience is going to understand the message. The most rewarding part of that as a leader is when the light bulb does come on, when the people I'm communicating with, the group I'm communicating with, can see the racial equity implications of a decision that they're making or of an investment that they're making, or if they're just thinking about, wanting to volunteer their time or make a donation to a school, and they're asking what does it look like if we're able to donate these tools, these materials? How does that actually impact racial equity? And when I can talk to them about that and they understand it and they feel really good about the investment they're making in our kids and in our schools, that's huge. That's rewarding. That makes me feel like I'm making a difference for kids. A lot of the work that I'm doing is working with external audiences. Sometimes they're business partners, sometimes they're nonprofit organizations, sometimes they're community partners of ours, and just helping them to understand how they can really impact our schools and impact our kids is something that I think is really important. So for example, I do some work with GE Appliances and other large organizations, and sometimes they are in a place where they can donate materials for our students. And when they are able to donate things like a large conveyor belt in the case of UPS, or a manufacturing line in the case of GE Appliances, or even if they're just donating masks for students. These are things that really make a difference in a kid's ability to learn and have the best educational experience they can. When they can get that hands-on experience, they have the tools they need, they're in the right environments, they have transportation to get to the places that they want to go. Those are impacts that we're going to see down the line and in the short term. So I feel that working with these organizations to get the messages out in a clear way is something that does impact and have a positive impact on the outcome for students. So as you know, we are a large urban school district, and several dozen languages are spoken amongst our students and our families. So one thing that we're working on in the communications department is having a really strong partnership with our friends in the ESL department in language services to make sure that more and more and more of our materials are being translated into other languages so that all students and families have an opportunity to understand the messages that we're putting out there in the simplest way possible. To staff, I would say we are all lifelong learners, and that's what we are teaching our students to be as well. So I would encourage staff to both educate themselves as well as examine their hearts, to think about why they're experiencing this resistance to the progress we're making in racial equity. I think, through reading, through conversations with people who look different than you, they could really seek to bolster their understanding of the issues that are at play. And then I think in examining their hearts, they can start to think more about, why am I resisting this? What is it in my opinions, my background, that is making me say that the work the district is doing to create a level playing field for all kids isn't worth it, isn't effective, isn't something that we should be investing in. I've noticed that in some conversations I have with people, something that comes up is that they're drawing from their own past educational experiences, and they might say things like, well, when I was growing up, we went to school in trailers that had no heating and air conditioning, and I came out just fine. Or, when I was growing up, I might have been picked on for how I looked, and I'm still okay today. And I would just encourage them to think, is that a trauma response? Are you okay today? And just because you went through that kind of experience, is that something that we should encourage for our current students? So I would just say to staff to just really drill down, like, why is it I resist this work? And educate yourself on more of why it's worth it and the larger systemic issues that are at play. To community members, I would say the same thing. Educate yourself, also examine your heart and your motivations. But I would say to community members too, come visit us, come see us at an elementary, a middle, and a high school, and see our kids, see the amazing things that they bring to the table, but also see some of the challenges that they're bringing with them to school. See the services that JCPS is providing to meet some of those needs, and see the impact that it's making, that they're able to get these services, and consider if you really don't believe that that's something that JCPS should be doing. See if you don't see that there are already inequities in the things that students bring to school with them, and the fact that it's important for their educational success that JCPS is able to meet them where they are and provide what those equitable resources are to help them succeed. I have really had a deeper understanding of how representation matters. I think sometimes for folks, it can seem like representation matters is just a catchphrase or something like that. But working in a district that values racial equity, when I'm asked to go read to a class or speak to a class, help with an event, I have a chance to really be in front of students. And it strikes me a lot more now that I know and see these these minds that are being shaped and formed or in the classroom, that when they see someone like me come to their class and either share my perspective or answer their questions or just talk about what I do, that matters, that helps them to see themselves either in a role like mine or just to be encouraged that someone like them can be successful. And working in our district, I've had a lot more of an opportunity to see how that representation does matter. You might think that attending a meeting where you don't have anything in particular that you feel is unique to say, or you might think sharing a little nugget from your past experience is insignificant. But I assure you that when you are just physically in the room, when you share from your own experiences, that matters. That helps to shape the direction that meeting can go. If decisions are made in that space, your experience, your perspective is unique and it's valuable. So I would say always show up, always speak up. Remember that you are important and that your presence matters.